And hello, welcome back to the Zach and Sully podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Josh Sullivan. I'm here with Zach DaCosta.
What's going on, gang?
Coming from you live from two different places, Lee, Massachusetts and Columbus, Ohio. We are proud to bring you episode 3. We're going to talk some football. We got the big weekend coming up. It's Championship Sunday, AFC and NFC championships. And we're also going to talk some Jim Harbaugh and how much of a nutcase that guy is.
Jim Psychopath Harbaugh.
Talk about his recruiting tactics. Do they actually work? Are they way too over the top? Is Michigan really that desperate for top tier recruits? And we're going to talk some hockey, a little bit of Patrick Kane, and of course, no podcast would be complete without bashing the NCAA and the blood-sucking organization that they are. So we're going to take care of that at the end.
Absolute scumbags.
Absolute
That's all I got
scumbags.
to say about them.
But first, we lead off with the 17th matchup between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning of their career. That happens this Sunday at 3 o'clock in Denver. Zach, what's your take on that?
All right, so pretty much my take on it is that, Tom Brady obviously hasn't played very well in Denver over the past few years, his career for the most part. In 8 games played in Denver, that's a lot of games you play on the road in one specific place, especially a team that's not even in the division, but we'll get to that later. But so he's 2-6 in games against Denver. But the thing that the Patriots have going for them is the fact that all those games have been decided by less than a touchdown. So the only game I'm looking at is when the Patriots won a couple years back, 41-23. Looking at other big games, the 17-20 loss, the year that Josh McDaniels was the coach over in Denver. When he was being an absolute, doing all that idiotic shenanigans on the sidelines, pumping his fists, yeah, we beat the Patriots, And then I know for a fact my dad was super pissed about seeing him on the sidelines like that. So they've had quite a lot of memorable games. But the one thing with Denver that I'm interested is that they're 28-4 at home in the last 4 seasons, but 2 of those losses have come in the playoffs. So, as good as they are at home, is this team going to be good enough to take that home record that they have during the regular season, where they've only lost 2 games over 4 years at home, and kind of sort of bring it together in the playoffs? The Patriots look a little banged up. I know Jamie Collins is hurt. He's questionable for the game. I mean, Gronk's knee was kind of questionable going into Kansas City last week, but I think that the way he played and that quick touchdown they scored, that kind of threw most of the thought out the window. And besides the fact that Edelman started off cold with a bunch of those drops that happened in the first half, he still finished with over 100 yards catching and still caught 10 passes. And then, of course, there's the durability of Peyton Manning. Is he going to be the one that is going to get put into a spot where Denver is going to have to rely on him to make big plays? I don't think Denver wants to be put in that spot, but, I definitely feel like with him on, they'd rather have him than Brock Osweiler instead of him taking over the game and being the X factor. So I don't know. How do you feel about the circumstances for New England for the most part, with the injuries and the past history of not playing very well in Denver?
Yeah, when I think of playoff games in Denver, I really think of that 2005 AFC Championship when Tom Brady threw that awful pass that Champ Bailey picked off, and Bailey ran it back.
Yeah, but the best part about that was when Ben Watson ran 95 yards down the field and just murdered Champ Bailey in the side. That was
at the 1 yard line. That was the only good play of that game. Belichick even said it after the game. He said there was a lot of negatives about that game.
That was a disgusting game to watch.
That was tough. And honestly, when I think about playing playoff football in Denver, that's the game I kind of look at. It's pretty terrifying knowing that Peyton Manning has been able to get his team to the AFC Championship playing the way he has, and I think it's kind of proof that he still is a threat, and he still poses a reason to be scared of him because he's been able to play good football with his brain. Granted, their defense has been fantastic. Aqib Talib has been playing fantastic cornerback. They've gotten production out of Demaryius Thomas. And that has kept this Denver's Broncos team relevant for sure.
Well, yeah, they're the number 1 defense in the NFL. They got the number 1 pass defense. They got the number 4 rush defense. These guys can play. They got Pro Bowlers all over the line. You got Von Bell, like you see, Aqib Talib, and DeMarcus Ware. He's on that defensive line too, right?
Yep.
So they got guys that can make plays. But the thing is, it's just that you know that the energy that Tom Brady's going to bring to the game. That's when you kind of build your opinion on, well, am I going to take the guy who has proved in games this year that hasn't been able to really throw a football? He's missed a lot of games. His age is certainly showing. And then you got a guy like Tom Brady who, with all these allegations that were going on with him in the offseason, all the BS that the NFL brought upon him, he was still able to have a season where he threw over 4,000 yards, 4,500 yards. So
I don't even care.
Quarterback was played better this year. And that's the guy you want to be able to perform. Yeah, defenses win championships, but still,
I don't even care about all the allegations about Deflategate. I don't care about any of that. The thing that impresses me is what he's been able to do with a ragtag offensive line. That's what really impresses me. And this offense with Gronkowski, Amendola, Julian Edelman, this is the most dynamic offense he's had probably since the Randy Moss days. And I'm not going to hesitate in saying that. And that's going to help the Patriots absolutely 100%. Now that Amendola is back to full form, now that Edelman is back, he's got the jitters out. He got those drops early on. That's going to happen. We saw it with LaFell earlier in the season. It's really tough to come back and have everything moving in the same direction in your first game back. Gronkowski, if you throw to him once or twice all game, I'm fine with that. Just having him on the field is just opening up your offense because he requires people to pay special attention to him. He can do stuff on the screen pass. He can do stuff, short little slants, or he's a deep threat. So I'm just happy he's going to be on the field. He's a distraction whether he can actually perform or not. Absolutely.
Having Gronk on the field, he's that one guy you're like, you can put him on the field and people are still going to be like, well, I know he's injured, but he still has the strength to be able to fight through that and then make big plays. I mean, you saw it. Everyone was talking about how scared the Patriots were going to be because, oh, well, Gronkowski, he's got a shot in his knee. He's all banged up. He's not going to be able to perform like he would if he was 100% healthy. And then he goes out on the first drive and they make a statement and he scores a touchdown. So for to have all this talk about Gronk not being a factor because he's hurt is completely idiotic for anyone to think that he's not going to make a difference. You just put him out on the field, yeah, he's gonna be a distraction. But the thing is with the Patriots, and I saw this a lot against Kansas City, they have a tough time running the football, and you can definitely see it. They're missing guys like Dion Lewis and LeGarrette Blount out on the field. Steven Jackson, you thought that, I thought Belichick was going to bring a guy like Jackson in, a veteran. Remember when he did 10 years ago with Corey Dillon? He was able to take a guy who desperately wanted to win that Super Bowl, who always was a great running back, but never had the coaching or the team around him to perform the way he did. And I'm just not seeing it with Steven Jackson. I just think that it's been tough. I feel like every time he gets the ball, they run up right to the hole. He's got nowhere to run. And a lot of that has to do with the way the offensive line is played. So I feel if the Patriots are going to have to feel comfortable about them and not worry about being in a situation where all the pressure is going to be put on the pass game, they're going to really have to make a couple plays on the run game to kind of set the pass up. And if they do get the ability to run the ball effectively, it's going to be a long day for Denver. That's all I'm going to say.
New England has never had a running back, though, that other than Corey Dillon, that's really been able to light it up, or Kevin Faulk.
A guy out there that's going to be able to set the pass up. That's all I'm saying. And with a defense like Denver, that's the only way I feel like they're going to feel comfortable about it. Not going to say they 100% desperately need it, but it's definitely something they're going to want to bring to the table if they're going to want to feel more have more confidence about the game and the outcome.
The whole thing with Steven Jackson, he's a big guy, he's a power back, and he's not as shifty as he once was, and playing only half the season definitely hasn't helped that at all. I think that's why they run him straight up the gut most of the time. And he picks up good yardage every once in a while. He's still feeling it. He's still kind of getting his legs. I know you can't go into the AFC Championship game and saying, oh, but he's getting his legs. He's going to be fine. I know you can't say that. I'm not expecting this guy to all of a sudden find himself in this week of practice and this week of walkthroughs. All I'm saying, though, is that someone has to step up at that position, and he's showed spurts of being able to produce. He had big 8-yard pickups. He had big runs for a first down. And if he gets 3 yards, 4 yards at a time, so be it. Set up a third and 3 situation for Brady to throw a slant to Amendola, and Amendola picks up a little bit of yardage. I'm fine with that.
Any idea what the weather's going to be like in Denver this weekend?
I have no idea.
Well, it's Denver. It's January, so I'm guessing it's going to be cold, if that, not snowy and stuff. So, but luckily for the teams playing in Denver, if it comes down to a field goal or some game like that, the kicker's got the edge out there in Mile High because of the air. So, yeah, it leads me to the final thing I got to ask you. Who do you got?
New England all the way. I do think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a game for the ages. This might be the last ever Brady versus Manning matchup we have, if not ever, at least in the playoffs. And for that, it's totally worth paying extra attention to and tuning into.
The entire game decides on the way Peyton Manning plays. That's my opinion. I'm not concerned about the Patriots' offense. I don't really have doubts that they're going to not make plays. They have guys in the passing game that are too hard to ignore. I never, ever like betting against Tom Brady, ever. It's something you don't do. I think the Broncos are doing a lot of damage to themselves, talking a lot of crap to Brady this week. It never, ever turns out good. It never does. Even Seattle talked all that crap about Brady, and then they beat him in the regular season, and then when the most important time came for them to play against Brady, they blew it. And, yeah, of course, it came down to an unreal once-in-a-lifetime play. But still, the game was determined by a well-coached team, and that's the reason why the defense was set up. But that's another story. I'm taking New England. So,
but Peyton isn't going to play well. There's no way he plays well. It's can he pull it together when his team needs it the most? Because he's not going to play a complete 4 quarters. It's just not going to happen. It hasn't happened all year.
I'm going to go New England 24-17 or 24-14. I think that it's going to be a touchdown, maybe a 10-point game. I'd say it's close for the most part. I'd say towards the fourth quarter, the Patriots will sneak in a touchdown. I think Manning will throw a late pick. The Patriots will probably convert it into a field goal. They'll win 24-14 or 24-17. That's my guess. 17-14.
That's my guess.
Okay.
We're going low scoring. We got a good defense and an offense. I said late touchdown,
so I agree with you on that.
So moving on to the Arizona-Carolina matchup, we're seeing one of the most dynamic players that even if he doesn't win the Super Bowl this season is going to be a threat for years to come, and that's Cam Newton. What are you looking at of this game?
Well, the thing is, the most important part of this game is not Cam Newton, I don't think. I don't think it has the defense or Larry Fitzgerald. The most important factor of this game is how well Carson Palmer is going to play. The fact that Arizona got out of that game last week is mind-boggling to me. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Packer fan. I'm still being bitter about the loss. What I'm trying to say is this. Carson Palmer should have had like 5 interceptions in that game last week. Sam Shields dropped 3 picks, and you could tell that Palmer was really, really nervous out there, like on the field. He hadn't played in a playoff game in 10 years or so, so you could definitely see that his nerves were getting to him. Now, the thing is, he's got weapons around him everywhere. David Johnson has stepped up like big time. He was a big time player for my fantasy team. That's another thing, but like Larry Fitzgerald, obviously a veteran, a wide receiver anybody would want to have on their team. I mean, he's got the wideouts. The defense is stacked. They are a complete team, Arizona. But Carolina has also found a way to win. I mean, this year they were undefeated at home, and Cam Newton won the MVP, didn't he? Right?
Yep.
He just won the MVP. And the defense has X Factor, all-stars written all over it with Josh Norman and Luke Kuechly. So, yeah, the most important part for me, for Arizona, if they're going to stay into the game, if they're going to put up points, Carson Palmer has to stay relaxed. He's got to throw from the pocket. He's got to realize that he's got weapons on his side. He's got guys that can catch the football. He's got guys that can get open. I like the matchup that Arizona has with Larry Fitzgerald versus Norman. I think Larry Fitzgerald's trash talk and asking like defensive backs, "Oh, how's your family going? Your family's going good? Good. That's nice." He doesn't tell people like, "Yeah, I'm going to get you in your head. I'm going to get down to the end zone and I'm going to beat you to it." He does this soft talk where he talks to receivers and asks them how like their families are doing and stuff. It's really, really weird. I like that. I think it's genius. I think he's one of the best. He's going to go down as one of the best. So I like that matchup. So what about you? What are your thoughts? What do you got with this game?
I'm picking Carolina. I think their defense is too good. It has little to do with Cam Newton. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be the X factor of that game. But the Carolina defense has been on fire. Luke Kuechly, I don't know. I don't see how you could pick against the kid. Another thing I have to go off of, I have Palmer's stats in front of me. 25 for 41 last week with 2 picks, like we said, 349 passing yards. But the Cardinals had no running game. Absolutely no running game. Ellington had like
he needed to win this game too.
Ellington had about 3 carries. David Johnson, you said.
You gotta remember with Arizona though. Arizona's running game, yeah, it was like with Chris Johnson in there. He had about 800 yards before he went down for the season, and David Johnson had 500. But the main important fact you got to think of when David Johnson's in the game is he's primarily getting dumped off on screens and stuff. Excuse me for the ambulance that's driving by right now. But David Johnson, he gets primarily dump passes. Like the whole screen game is set up. That's how he's set up around the offense. They use him as a receiver. So I think the run game is important. If they were able to open it up and like set up the play action and set up the pass, that's going to be an important factor for Arizona. But I don't know if it's really mandatory. I think the thing is, if you get David Johnson out there where you can run screen passes and everyone's going to be like, well, we're going to put our guys on him, that's going to put a lot more pressure on guys like Kuechly and Norman to cover the secondary when you have guys like Larry Fitzgerald and Michael Floyd running all over the place. So I think if Arizona stays calm and keeps Palmer relaxed, they're going to be able to create more plays, and I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on Newton because Newton, when he gets cocky and when he gets into the game, he's very tough to beat. But once you bring him into the fourth quarter and there's all pressure on him, you take away from that factor that he brings to the game, and you start to feel more confident about beating this great Panther team. So
he's really about to kind of set the tone for his legacy right here this weekend. He's a great quarterback right now, or I'll say he's a very good quarterback right now. And a lot of people talk about how he's established himself as more than just an athlete. He's really been able to amplify the quarterback part of the game, the thinking, the analyzing, the situations around him. But we're gonna see if that can come to fruition against Arizona. And I don't know, I'm almost more excited for that game than I am the Denver New England matchup, just because I don't know. I have no idea what to expect coming out of it.
All right, what are your picks? What do you got?
I have Carolina. I will say a little bit more of a shootout. I'll go 31 to. I'll go 30 to 23. We'll go 30 to 23.
I'm gonna go. Man, this is a tough one. This is a very tough pick. I think if Carolina wins, they're gonna win. They're gonna win big. I think because they're at home. They feed off of momentum really well. They're easily one of the best teams in the NFL. If Arizona comes to play, and I think Palmer's gonna be more relaxed now that he finally got his first playoff win out of the way, I'm taking Arizona. I'm gonna take them 35-31 shootout as well.
So we'll see. Moving on to the college side of things, Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if Zach will probably be gladly to take this off my hands, but he's had some interesting recruiting tactics going on.
Yeah, so it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, for a school like Michigan, for a coach to do the most outrageous, ridiculous things that he's doing right now. You know, like you got Michigan guys running around like, oh, Michigan football, we have the most wins in college football history, Michigan men. And then you have your coach, your head coach. Let me tell you, people, this is not fabricated at all. Fabricated. I can't even speak. This is not. I'm not even exaggerating this at all. This is exactly what Harbaugh is doing to lure players to get them to go to Michigan. This involves climbing a tree to impress a recruit for Michigan, baking a cake for a Texas recruit in the shape of Texas, which, remind you, is one of the ugliest cakes I've ever seen. And then now this one made main headlines. So the other night he took Arizona recruit Connor Murphy, and he hung out and they had a Netflix and chill night where Harbaugh slept on the floor in the bedroom of Connor Murphy. And not to mention, he showed up at their house past midnight. So this is so bizarre. A coach coming into your house past midnight to hang out and watch movies with you, and then he sleeps on your floor in your bedroom, all to get a goddamn recruit. Like, this is ridiculous. This is Michigan football. You do not have to do this kind of stuff to get players to go to your school.
But does he? That's a good question. Does he have to do that? Because why would you go to school in Michigan if you're a recruit? They're loving the warm weather right now. You know, tradition doesn't sell recruits anymore. Like, you see that with Notre Dame. Notre Dame struggled for a while to get good recruits because for a while they were like, this is history. Don't you want to be a part of history? And eventually kids were like, no, I don't want to. I want to go to USC where the girls are always in shorts and it's really warm out and I can have a hot tub on my campus center. And I don't know. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but it's getting harder and harder for teams to recruit.
I just think it's ridiculous, though, because, like, Michigan has the third-ranked recruiting class right now in the country. Third. You don't have to do all this outrageous stuff to get kids to be like, yeah, come to me. If you were a coach at like SMU or like Louisiana Tech or some other fraud school like Rutgers, then yeah, I'd probably think that you would probably have to like climb a tree and then spend a Netflix and chill with somebody. But no, this is Michigan, for God's sakes. Like you're gonna do all this clown crap just to get kids to go to your school. It's embarrassing for the most part. Like you can go and show all the guys the history of Michigan football and stuff, and just show guys like Brady, guys like Charles Woodson, who have gone in the NFL and had successful careers. It just says it for itself. Harbaugh is a freaking psychopath. He is. You saw him at the hockey game the other night eat a freaking hot dog like a goddamn savage. That was ridiculous. You saw that, right?
No, I didn't.
He had a hot dog in his mouth, and he was chewing like I'm like, dude, that is absolutely disgusting. But like I've said this before, he's a kooky dude. Like he just his mind is like. He's got a little – I think he's like a little chemically imbalanced. I mean, the way his interviews are presented and stuff, he just doesn't seem like he's fully with people. He's a very smart football coach, and that's all that runs through his mind. But anything outside of football, he cannot function as a normal human in society. He can't.
A couple other recruiting stories that Harbaugh has used. He showed up at a kicker he was recruiting. His name's Quinn Norton. He showed up at the kid's house at 12:01 on the dot on the beginning of recruiting because that's when he was allowed to see him. And I think the kid was in there watching TV, and he knocked on his door, and he said, "I want to start recruiting you as soon as possible." And he's like, "Well, coach, it's midnight. I'm going to bed." He's like, "That's okay. Give me a 6'3" piece of carpet to sleep on. I'll stay here overnight, and we'll deal with it in the morning." So another story is sleeping over. The Connor Murphy story actually is pretty interesting because Harbaugh actually has a prior relationship with him. He was recruiting his older brother Trent when he was a coach at Stanford, and he showed up at the same time Murphy's mother happened to be going into labor. So Murphy's parents hopped in an ambulance or hopped in the car and went to the hospital and were like, "Hey, Jim, can you babysit Connor for a little bit?" So that's where he has that relationship where he can.
I gotta give it to him though. I gotta give it. Some of the stuff is pretty freaking hysterical. But if you're a Michigan fan, you cannot feel like the slightest of it embarrassed that your coach is going through all this crap just to get kids to go to Michigan. Like you shouldn't have to do all this bizarre stuff. And it's just I don't know. Like
there's another story.
Halfway through the season, I know it's a little off topic, but like it just kind of goes to show like what kind of person Jim Harbaugh is. He was talking about his tight end Jake Butt, and he was just like, Jake Butt, Jake Butt, yeah. And then he goes, Jake Butt, Jake Butt, Jake Butt. He said his name like 5 times in a row. Like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, get it? Like, talk more about your tight end. But like, it was just like I don't know. The guy he's clinically insane. He's absolutely batshit crazy.
Don't you have to be a little bit clinically insane though to be a guy like that? Like, there's no way Belichick isn't normal.
Oh, of course, yeah. You want a guy who's not normal. Obviously, it's hysterical, but like normal in a sense, as in, yeah, I want my guy to be devoted to getting kids to come to my school. I want him to work his ass off to get people to play football at my school, and I want like the guy to be passionate about what he does. But there's a fine line between sleeping on recruit kids' floors and climbing trees. That's all I'm gonna say.
Would Urban Meyer and Nick Saban ever do that? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
And they have a lot more.
Who knows?
They have a lot more.
Maybe Harbaugh's going to start this entire new trend. Maybe there's going to be we're going to see Urban Meyer like I don't know do something absolutely insane that's going to make people wonder like, all right, where do you draw the line between like recruitment and this is a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, Harbaugh actually sat in on a world studies class for one of his recruits in Florida, I believe, too. Like, and I guess the teacher thought he was the high school football coach, and I thought he was checking in on one of his players. I don't know. That's a pretty funny story. If you look it up, it's in it's on Sporting News. That's where I read that one.
Just keep feeding me, Jim. Keep feeding me. Seriously, I'm loving everything about it. It's just absolutely hysterical to an Ohio State guy like me.
So. Sticking with college football, we had an interesting thing. The USA Today audited the tax reports from the SEC, and that's not the government, the SEC. That is the Southeastern Conference, as in the football conference. And Zach, you want to roll with this one?
So yeah, in relation to that, so the SEC, they made $527.2 million this year.
And
Not
from what
not over 4 years, not over 5 years, not over 10 years. This year, a 62% increase from 2013. So,
and from what I heard, that is largely, in fact, because the SEC network through ESPN just came up. I heard a lot of the revenue came through that.
Yep. So Jalen Tabor, the defensive back for the Florida Gators, quote unquote, compared the NCAA to a modern day slavery. See, okay, my opinion with it is this. I don't agree with the word choice he used for it, because slavery, people didn't have freedom, they didn't have their rights, so they have every decision in the world not to play football. But what I will say is this: a lot of these kids don't come from poor, low-income families that don't have a lot of money, and you have students who, obviously, college students are broke. They don't have money. We haven't worked a full-time job. We're relying solely on our parents' money when we come to school. And at that, if you're working a part-time job, you're most likely making between like $100 and $200. $200 if you're lucky, if you work at a bar or something like that. So when I see stats that each school is receiving $32.7 million in the SEC, and mentioned schools like Vanderbilt that suck and rely heavily on schools like Alabama and LSU and Florida, who are the main contenders of the SEC. That's what, to me, is like, what do all these schools need all the money for? What could they possibly be doing with all that money?
Can you do me a favor? Can you repeat those stats? Something happened. It cut out a little bit. Can you just repeat those stats?
So the SEC, you know how it is, $527.2 million. So each school in the SEC, it receives $32.7 million just from football. Just from football. Yep. And this is another stat. So yeah, the players have a decision to make whether they want to play football or not. But let me tell this to the idiots who are going off saying, "Oh yeah, well you have a decision to make play football. You know, if you don't want to play, then don't play." What dumbass 18-year-old high school student is going to say, you know, well, I got an offer from Alabama and LSU or USC to play football, but they don't pay any money, and I don't really want to pursue my NFL career, so I'm going to say no. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to go get a free education in any of that. It is completely idiotic. No kid is going to say something like that. And when you're talking like divisions, between Division I, only 4% of the players from college football go on to play in the pro. And if you combine all three divisions, it's less than 1%. So there's not a high fraction of students paying. So when I hear stuff like the SEC is making $527 million, when the kid graduates from college and you know he's not going pro, why can't he get some of that money? Why can't you give him something to start off with? Like, hey, you know, you brought a national championship or you brought a bowl to our art school. Why can't he get some of that money? Why? After he graduates.
I'm in two boats with this because as a UNH graduate, you know, I went to school up there in New Hampshire. Yes, it's a Division I school. Hockey is its go-to sport, and its football program is very good, but its football program is part of the FCS. So not a moneymaker in the slightest. Actually, if you were to take the money that you take in from football and hockey games alone, it barely pays enough for all the other sports. So you're not making money. You're breaking even in schools like that. A smaller Division I school, but it's not going to it's not a powerhouse. It doesn't bring in 100,000 people to football games. And I'm in two boats because the football players who are at UNH, they are not treated like, you know, they're not stereotypical at all. They're the first ones to show up for anything. They're always at class. I had class with plenty of athletes, and I almost every single year missed more class than the football player I sat next to or the hockey player I sat next to. And that's because it's a different lifestyle. It's a different, you're a big fish in a small pond. Therefore, you can't afford to miss it because professors and stuff like that don't really care as much. Yeah, you might be going to the NHL in a couple of years, but you know what? Right now, you're sitting in my kinesiology class, and you're gonna do the workouts, and you're gonna take notes, and you're gonna do that stuff. Now, with that being said, John Oliver said this back during March Madness, and he said, "Oh, you know, the average out-of-state tuition at, say, the University of Florida is $42,000. You get a full ride to go to Florida because you're playing a sport. You're essentially getting, you know, if they give you a laptop and if they give you books, you're essentially getting like $200,000 worth of goods, and that's 4 years of college." But he compared it to, oh, that's like giving someone free trumpet lessons, and then they're so busy working another job that they don't have time to learn how to play the trumpet.
Exactly. That's the point. You're talking about like, oh yeah, we're giving you the funds to go to school, and we're giving you the funds to like support yourself at school. But that doesn't mean a thing in the real world. It doesn't mean a thing. You can devote all your time you want to playing football. If you're a Division I athlete, you're gonna if you stay on your game and you're playing football, you're going to class, and hell, you might even be working a part-time job just so you can like afford simple things. Because remember, you can't use any money from the NCAA. It doesn't balance out. And the thing is, and then you got a schmuck like Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, who made $4 million last year off of players who aren't getting any money. And that to me is absurd. That's ridiculous.
I think there's a simple
possible.
I think there's a simple solution to this. You let players sign their own endorsement deals. Why should everyone on North Carolina have to wear Jordan stuff? If Marcus Page gets offered like $20,000, I'm not saying big money. You can put a limit on it. I'm not saying you have to go out and sign for a ton of money. But if he can make $25,000 a year by signing with Under Armour and he wears Under Armour shoes and Under Armour shooting sleeves and an Under Armour headband, then let Marcus Page leave the Jordan brand and go wear Under Armour stuff. It's not hurting you at all. It doesn't affect you in the slightest. Your uniforms are still going to be Jordan. Your warm-ups are still going to be Jordan. That's fine. You know, we talked about Michigan last episode and how they're all Adidas. If their quarterback wants to go ahead and sign with Nike and wear a Nike glove and Nike cleats and a Nike face shield, even though those are the ugliest things in the world for quarterbacks, go ahead. Let him do it. Let him get $16,000 a year. Let him get $35,000 a year. And then you know what? That bench player at the end of the bench who never gets any playing time, sorry, bud, that's the way the real world works. No one wants to pay you. Maybe he gets lucky and signs a deal with someone like Puma or some weird company like that who they want to.
But the fact of the matter is, you're right. Who cares? Who cares? They should be able to. If they're making money, they should be making money. They're a Division I athlete, and you know what? And the same thing is, like, if you have a quarterback or some big time player from UNH is going to play in the NFL, or if he's getting recruited and somebody wants to sign into an endorsement deal, he should be able to do that. It's his life. It's his decision. The school is already making enough money off as it is. As an Ohio State student, all right, every student who wants season tickets here pays $270 a season to get season tickets, all right? My family came out here for the Minnesota game, and for the total package it was going to cost my family to go to the game, it was going to cost close to $1,000 for one game. So you see where this money is going to, all right? And you see how much money the SEC made, and then you see the money that also comes in from sponsorships. It comes in from all kinds of bowl sponsorships as well, like when you win a bowl
donors,
and all that.
alumni.
Yeah, don't even get me started. The fact that they're going to try and get more money out of me right now. And the thing is, a lot of these students aren't getting promised jobs out of school. I mean, student debt, that's another topic for another day. But you see how it is, like how college is, and they have all this money, and then they always brag about what their like endowment is. So you know what? The players that are giving you the money and the players that are performing at the level they are, like Ohio State, like Alabama, and like Stanford, and Clemson, and all those schools, they are the ones bringing the money, so give them the money they deserve.
If you want a little insight as to just how closely people pay attention, UNH is a Nike school. I worked in the equipment room at UNH. One of their players didn't really like the Nike gloves, wore cutters, made it through a quarter and a half. Nike had a rep watching their game. Their game was aired on it was like ESPN2 or NBC Sports. They had a lot of games on channels like that. And a Nike rep was watching that, called up the equipment room, and had them go down there with a pair of Nike gloves, hand them to the kid, and say, I think you made a mistake. And that's a Division I FCS school that on TV there was probably, I don't know, 500,000 people watching. Was it good TV? Yeah. It was probably a great game. It was probably against Villanova or St. Mary's or William and Mary or a good team like that. But it wasn't like the national championship, and it wasn't like a Friday night game between Oregon and Stanford. It was a game with maybe 500,000 viewers, and they still went ahead. And you know why? It's because Nike wants to make all the money they can, and it looks bad if someone's not wearing their stuff.
It's ridiculous. It is. But all right, I'll take this one, I guess. I'll introduce you to this one. So we're moving on. Last topic. Patrick Kane. Wow. That's all I can say. He's by far the most dynamic player in the NHL this year. He is completely taking that allegation over the offseason and thrown it out of the back of his head, and he has turned it into a 71-point season so far. We haven't even got to the NHL All-Star break. 71 points. 41 assists in 30 games. He had a 4-point hat trick the other night at Toronto. He's the only USA player to score 20 or more goals in each of his first 9 seasons. And he is also the only American-born. And he's also the only American NHL player to have a 26-point game streak, which is the longest for a USA-born player. So, yeah, Blackhawks 25-1 at home. Dynasty continues. It looks like they're probably going to go back to the Cup again this year. Sully, what do you got?
Wayne Gretzky was giving an interview with, I think, the Hockey News, and he said this. He said, what the Blackhawks have done. By the way, Wayne Gretzky, clearly the best player in hockey history and played for one of the best organizations in hockey history.
Edmonton in the 80s.
Yep, late 80s Edmonton. They were unbeatable. And he said, what the Blackhawks have done today is probably harder to do than what the Islanders did in the 80s and the Oilers did in the late 80s. I don't think there's any question at this point in the season that he's probably the leading candidate to win the Hart Trophy, and it's well-deserved.
And mind you, that Islanders team won 4 Stanley Cups in a row, too.
And the Edmonton team won 4, and they went to 5. So,
unbelievable, yeah. So that's a lot of recognition going from there. And you got to give a round of applause to Joe Quenneville too, man. He has done an unbelievable job with that team.
And the craziest thing about this is because of a sexual assault case, this almost didn't happen. And we don't, I'm not a detective, nor do I claim to be, nor do I play one on TV, so I'm not going to sit here and speculate. But from a lot of the evidence that's presented, it looked like there was some things that were fabricated. And that's why the NHL continued.
You never know, but it did look like a lot of pointing fingers and stuff, but we'll never know the full story of it. So that's all we got,
Very strange scenario with that, but a lot of people were giving the Blackhawks and a lot of people were giving the NHL a lot of flack for not suspending Patty Kane, especially when the incident with the DNA evidence bag landing on the defendant, or excuse me, the victim's mother's front doorstep. There's a lot of speculation that that he should be suspended after that. And I don't know if it was the right decision or not. I guess we'll find that out when the court case finally comes to an end. But clearly not letting that affect them. And the Blackhawks are pretty happy they made the choice not to suspend him right now, and they're just reaping the benefits. They're impossible to beat. He's on pace. If you put in some adjustments for goal scoring now as it was back in the 80s, he would have 58 goals and 79 assists at this point, if he was playing back when pads were smaller and goals were scored more often. But with that being said, he's on pace to score over 50 goals. And he will be the first 50-goal scorer in the past 4 seasons since 2012-2013 that's not named Alexander Ovechkin. He's got almost twice as many points as Crosby, Steven Stamkos, and Claude Giroux. And like you said before, the Buffalo native is on pace to be the first U.S.-born scoring title leader ever of all time, which is huge news.
He's having an absolutely incredible year, and the Blackhawks, even with getting rid of Patrick Sharp and stuff like that, they show no sign of slowing down at all. I mean, they're in first place in the West. I mean, the only team that has more points than them in the NHL is the Washington Capitals. And the thing is, you often got to wonder, Kane, he's looked fantastic in the past, and he looks even better now this year. He's only what, 27, 28 years old? I mean, the Blackhawks have so many good years ahead of them. They get so much talent on that team. So there's really nothing else to say. I say it all the time. The Blackhawks are the model you want to look at if you're running an NHL franchise. The big knock against the Bruins was that they won that Stanley Cup in 2011, and they tried to keep too many of their core players, and they overpaid, and they had guys who you loved. They were fan favorites. I loved them. I was upset to see them go, but you had to let them go at some point. You look at the Blackhawks, they're okay. They lose Sharp, like you said. They lose Oduya. They lose guys like Bufflin after they win cups. It doesn't matter because they're replaceable, because they have awesome scouting. And they have this. Was that the other guy? He went to Columbus. God bless his soul. Columbus is the worst team in the NHL this year.
Yeah, it's been a pretty brutal year. I think it was I forget who it was, but he said we're playing like boys among men right now. So that's just a little.
Sports. He's the coach of the Blue Jackets now.
Yep.
So
me and Zach made our way to a Blue Jackets game earlier this season.
Yeah, we looked out. We got to see the winless Maple Leafs versus the winless Blue Jackets.
It was a real interesting game. We were sitting the highest possible spot we were. We were with a bunch of Maple Leafs fans. It was great.
What about those? Remember those Maple Leaf fans that showed up? So we left the game early because the Maple Leafs were up like 4-0 in the third, and the Blue Jackets were gonna lose like their 11th game in a row or something like that. So we're outside Nationwide Arena. We're looking for a cab on a High Street or Uber, and a taxi pulls up, and these hammered I keep thinking blue. Toronto Maple Leaf fans get out of the cab, and they're just wondering like, "Oh, we're gonna get inside. We're gonna get inside." I'm like, "Hey, buddy, the game it's like over, man. The game ends in like 5 minutes."
There's like 8 minutes in the third period, and they came from Canada to go watch this game. And
they came from Canada, and they rented a hotel in Delaware, Ohio, which is like 30 minutes away from Nationwide Arena, and they took a taxi there in the third period.
So they show up just missing the entire game, and it was too bad for them too because the Maple Leafs pulled it off. I
know. Those guys, I can't imagine what their taxi bill was that night. But yeah.
So, moving on to final thoughts. I'm going to stick with hockey real quick on this one. Louis Eriksson, in an interview with DJ Bean, also UNH guy, so shout out to him. Not that I know him personally at all, but he's a writer for WEI.com, revealed that the reason he came to Boston in the Tyler Seguin trade, which everyone hates so much, was because he wanted out of Dallas. He wasn't fitting in there. He was done with it. He had spent 8 years there. And he said that he doesn't really like transitioning because it took him a while to adapt to the Bruins system, as Bruins fans can obviously tell because of how bad he was the first 2 years he came here. And he doesn't really look forward to leaving. So that might be good. Maybe he can take a hometown discount because Lord knows the Bruins need to cut some salary. So that's my final thought.
My final thought is this. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh, your recruiting tactics are bizarre, insane, and yeah, you might have the third leading recruiting class in the country, but there's only 2 teams ahead of you, and number 2 is LSU, and number 1 is The Ohio State. So keep on trying, bud. I feel for you. I really do, and that's my final thought for today.
So, hey, you heard it here first. Ohio State recruit heavy this year. I'm Josh Sullivan. We are signing off. That's Zach DaCosta. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate all your support. And stay tuned. We're still working on that Podbean site. Take care, boys.
Go Pats. Go Cardinals.